Alright, so Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG is having some problems, and it's time to discuss why players are becoming dissatisfied and disincentivized to continue playing this game. And I think YCS Indianapolis really drove home those points. The community is becoming increasingly frustrated, and today we're going to be discussing those issues. I would love to know your thoughts. Please chime in with your ideas on how we could improve this game, but do try and keep it polite. Of course, like the video if you enjoy it as well, and let's hop into today's discussion. The number one point is that the game is simply becoming too broken. Now let's elaborate on this. I feel like we're caught in this loop. The loop is pretty much like broken archetypes getting printed, and then mid archetypes get completely slaughtered on the ban list so the new archetype can get pushed. And then what happens is those formats last really long. They become stale, people become really annoyed, but they just refuse to hit certain archetypes because it's helping them push products. They want to capitalize on the sales, and of course, what they also want to capitalize on is the reprints. And if we're taking a look at Snake Eyes, for example, they didn't hit it, they don't want to touch it, not until the Megatins at least, because they are trying to push their products, and that is a huge problem. And what also happens is decks sometimes get completely power crept, or once it's time they just get rendered useless on the ban list, and then it's pretty much just rinse and repeat. We have seen this time and time again, and at this point it's kind of funny to look at older archetypes that seemed completely ahead of its time and busted. For example, Tri-Brigade. This is a throwback, but I remember all of us talking about how this archetype is too broken and how are they supposed to just link summon without actually link summoning. And where's that archetype now? What's happening with it? Is Fractal really something that's scaring you in 2024? Or how about Tearlament's format? Let's not forget that because Tier was so completely and utterly busted, people actually completely blew up the Edison format. Like, it became so popular because players were just so desperate to get away from the meta, and that's also a big issue. And since we're talking about retro formats, my husband made a really good point earlier today. He pretty much said that, you know, if you take a look at like Tangleplant or Edison or any older format, pretty much, Tangleplant did have hand traps, but they weren't as prevalent. If you take a look at any of these formats, did your opponent really do something to you on turn 0 that made you unable to play? They didn't. And what's happening right now? No back and forth gameplay, just hand trapping to death. And a very big issue is the fact that the archetypes they keep printing is just a lot of one card starters. And when you have a really small engine, you have way too much space to fit in all of the hand traps and other non-engine cards that you want. And that's when we come to the hand trap wars we are in right now, which is just an extremely unenjoyable format. What's also making this particular time period very unhealthy is the fact that you're kind of forced to do toxic things to your opponent to prevent them from playing, because if you don't, they're going to do the same to you. So you have to play Floodgates, you have to run Gimmick Puppet, you have to run Shifter, you had to run Droll, and we could keep on naming things like Stundex and other Floodgates, and it's just too much. But you have to do it. The second point I want to make pretty much goes hand in hand with the first one, and it's the amount of time you have to spend to get good at this game because of how extremely elaborate it is, and it's becoming more and more convoluted, and there's too many things you have to keep in mind. Because if you think about your average Yu-Gi-Oh player and the age we are in, people have families, jobs, they go to school, they physically do not have the time to spend or waste, however you want to look at it, to get good at this game and then go to an event and get like rivalried or something, and there's nothing they can do about it. Because sometimes you're very well prepared and it just does not matter because of the aspects of the game. What you have to be doing is spending all of this time on getting really good at reading your opponent and reading their cards, meaning you have to keep in mind all of the cards that are in the card pool. Also, you have to be very good at just basic gameplay. You have to be great at technical play. You have to be an amazing deck builder, or just take a deck list and understand why it works the way it works and try to tweak it to your advantage and for your personal meta. You just gotta keep too many things in mind, and then again you go to an event and it's just not going to matter at all because of how toxic the game is by itself. Are you really feeling like you spent that time well, or did you actually waste it and all of your effort got rendered useless because you either bricked or got hand trapped to death, or a random archetype opened a floodgate, or proceeded to do a very extreme combo because you didn't open a hand trap and then they just locked you out of the game. It wasn't even you. It was just Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's the terrible feeling you get sometimes. Now let's look at it from a positive perspective. We're going to be talking about the third point on today's list. Let's imagine you had a really successful event. You just did so well, you topped, you didn't get floodgated, or if you did, you had an out, it was amazing, you got to top cut, and then you got your prize support. And you're just sitting there with your little stack of packs and a playmat, and then you have to think to yourself, did I waste that time? Even though I topped? And I think the prize support by itself could probably be a separate video because it is terrible. And I've talked about this in the past, so I won't spend too much time on it, but I feel like all of us as a community have ideas on what could be improved, and I genuinely think it wouldn't take too much of their effort or funds to improve those things. It is kind of an embarrassment, if we're being completely honest, the pricing that we get. I think it's also terrible that the YCS pricing is the same across like every single YCS for an extended period of time. And I know there's going to be people out there saying, well, there aren't many people topping a YCS. It's very hard to top a YCS. What's a random casual Andy going to do about it? Like, you shouldn't care. I understand that. But if we're taking a look at it from a perspective of the game as a whole, the community as a whole, the people that do top those events, they matter. They did well and they should receive good price support. If you even dare to think about One Piece and other card games, I think the differences are glaring. And the best way I could put it is it's an embarrassment. And I think the price support has got to be worked on, because what are you working towards? And more importantly, what are you spending your money for when you don't get any kind of payoff? And that's a great segue into the fourth point of today's video, which is just the terribly, terribly expensive prices of this game. And again, this could be a separate topic on its own, and I have talked about this quite a lot in the past, but it's just very discouraging to see how desperately they want to capitalize on just expensive archetypes, pushing any kind of product, not for the health of the game, but just for their own personal gain. You do not have to print the entire fire support and make it as expensive as it is, and then use it as an excuse so you do not have to hit those cards because you want to give people time to play because they paid for the cards. But if you printed cheap cards in the first place, you could actually hit toxic archetypes when they become too toxic. And again, we're part of this loop that's like just never going to end and never going to be broken, because they're gonna keep printing broken archetypes, put a huge price tag on them, and then hit them and print new ones. They could do something about it. They could take steps in the right direction, but they just refuse to do it because we are so different from the OCG, and they just can't really apply those business practices here. I think it probably goes deeper than that. I'm 100% sure it goes deeper than that, but it just is terrible. Like, how is it okay for them to announce an ultimate rare Snake Eye Ash? Because it's like rubbing it in our faces. Like, why would you do it? I think I don't know. It's literally kicking us when we're already down. I guess with that, let's move on to the last point of today's video, which is the tournaments, how they are being run, what the streams are looking like, what the coverage is like. It's just so lackluster. And I did say in my YCS recap video that I love the fact they're putting more feature matches on the stream so it's not as boring, but I still feel like the thing that I'm missing, and I think a lot of the people are missing, is the idea of a spectacle. It's something to look forward to. It should make people feel good to play that event, to feel kind of, I guess, quote unquote, important to be on stream and to be on that stage. Or, for example, Worlds last year, there was a lot of discourse about that, about the paper playmats and the embarrassing day one venue, if you can even call it that. But how can you make the best players of the game feel so bad to just play in those kinds of conditions? Not to mention that Worlds this year is not going to be open to the public. How is the most important event of the year not open to the player base? Like, it's literally baffling. If you do not see it, you don't believe it. It is wild. It is wild. You have to navigate a janky Konami website blog that doesn't get updated almost ever when there's a YCS going on, especially if it's not streamed. They don't put any kind of information out there. The streams are boring. I don't know. I think there's a lot they could improve. Maybe, perhaps, possibly, starting with, I don't know, giving us a YCS in Europe. Here's an idea. And I think with that, that would be a good way to end today's video because, you know, where are the YCSs? And where is any kind of incentive from Konami to fix the issues I just talked about? I really, really want to hear your thoughts because I think it's just incredibly sad to see so many players be so dissatisfied and talk about quitting and just compare Yu-Gi-Oh! To other card games because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been around for a very long time. And something like One Piece wasn't. But where's all the hype? It's with other card games. I'm not sure how bright the future is for this game. So yeah, I think it's time to do something about it. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like. I really love talking about just current stuff and issues with you guys, and we can come together as a community and just have a discussion. So I would love to hear your thoughts. I will make sure to respond to the comments. So yes, like the video, comment, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.